Every year, the Morgan Poll does a survey on the ethics and honesty of professionals in Australia. Real estate agents have never fared very high on the list.
Some of them probably real sharks. Absolutely. So that they probably earn that. They earn it, definitely. The guy that we dealt with was really nice. But you don't trust them. Like, it's the same thing. They are kind of like car dealerships, and they will kind of scam you in a way.
Like, vendors are being led to believe one thing, and purchasers are being led to believe another, and there's kind of this massive gap. So there's a huge element of sort of mistrust, because one story's being told to one party and another to another. So
agents will generally earn a commission of 2% on each house they sell, but in a competitive industry, acquiring houses to sell can be difficult. According to real estate agent and trainer Barry Little, that's where the deception begins.
So what's interesting, I think, is if the agents were telling the owners, the property sellers, the same price they're telling the buyers, they wouldn't get the job. The owners wouldn't give them the business in the first place. And they know that, because they do it every day. They know exactly how the game works. So they tell the owners whatever the owners want to hear, or what they think they need to say to be able to get the business. And then they start telling the buyers the price they need to tell the buyers to get offers, which are going to condition the owner to become more realistic about price, because at the end of the day, if the agent doesn't get an agreement on price, they won't get paid.
And while real estate agents are engaging in these illegal quoting tactics to fight for our business, buyers and sellers are the ones losing out.
You're terrible, Muriel.
Tony Collette is now in trouble in real life, being sued to the tune of $800,000. Collette and her husband pulled out of a deal to buy a property in Paddington after they failed to sell their house in Bronte to help facilitate the deal. Collette claims her agent enticed her with a valuation of upwards of $4 million, only to find that the property was advertised in the media for $500,000 less than that. The property was eventually passed in at auction for the price that it was advertised for. Go figure. This is exactly the type of behaviour from real estate agents that Barry Little believes gives the industry a bad name. In his quest to clean up the industry, Little began filming the testimonials of disgruntled home sellers in the hope that their stories would help others.
Well, they promised things that they didn't follow up through, and then in the end the price they said, one particular said, you'll get X, and the day before they said, no, you won't get X because there's a block of flats and the road's narrow. And we said, hang on. The road's always been narrow and the block of flats has always been there, so why did you say we'd get X?
We've been with another agent who had recommended that we put it on the market for expected price of between 1.6 and 1.8 million. The reality of it was, when they were speaking to vendors, they were saying high 1.3s to 1.4s. Consequently, that gap would never be filled. And so they were lying, basically. And on top of that, we had a very expensive marketing campaign on their behalf. So we felt very burnt and violated by this.
The agency, being a larger agency, uses print media as one of the driving forces, primarily, I think, to promote their own business as opposed to promote my property. And we ended up spending about $6,000 on the campaign with no results, and as we spoke about before, no real offers.
Tim McKibben, the CEO of Real Estate Institute of New South Wales, says the Office of Fair Trading is clamping down on misquoting, but that the industry is generally pretty clean anyway.
So you cannot say to a vendor that I will get you a price that you can't achieve. That's overquoting, and the mirror image of that is to say to a prospective purchaser that this property is likely to achieve at market a price that is less than that. That's underquoting. Now, does that sort of activity go on? Sadly, it does. Let's call it for what it is. It does go on. Thankfully, nowhere near as much as I think people in the community would think.
McKibben suggests there are many factors that add to the negative image associated to real estate agents.
Real estate agents feel some dissatisfactions on occasion. I think it's more about the size of the transaction, the stress that goes on, and the difficulties in the market of acquiring property.
There is no laws that demand transparency from real estate agents, and many home sellers depend on their gut instinct to choose an agent without being privy to their quoting and selling process. Is it important to qualify people so you don't get disappointed if they misquote you? So how did you come up with that quote? What were the guidelines?
You can't ask too many questions, is the short, which I think is where you're heading.
If people avoid these questions, should you then be sceptical?
Oh, sure. Anybody, but anyone who is avoiding your due diligence processes into their competencies, if somebody's pushing back onto that, I would be concerned. It wouldn't matter if they're a real estate agent or a doctor or a solicitor or an accountant or anybody.
It may be a bit of a lucky dip getting a good real estate agent, but Barry Little recommends you do demand to know how your house is being sold and choose an agent who is not afraid of transparency.
And they get business just based on bafflement and bamboozlement. Basically, if they make you feel stupid, you don't ask any more questions. You just go, okay, yep, you seem like a good guy. The price seems good because we were thinking 1.3 to 1.4, but you've said 1.6 plus. That's good enough for me. You're my friend now. You're going to get me 200,000 more than the top price I thought. Of course, that makes you feel good inside as a home seller, but if you really want the truth and you don't want to have an unpleasant surprise later, you really want to sit down and say, look, and you can be empathetic to the agent. The price you've said sounds pretty reasonable to us. It sounds good to us. Can you show us how you came up with that figure? Well, basically, what's the proof behind that figure? What's the sales you're using to compare with? And secondly, can you show us how you're going to go about marketing and advertising our property to get that price range? So what's your strategy here? What's your process?
Okay, and if they try and avoid that, then you should be wary.
Well, certainly be wary. Why would they try to avoid it if they were being upfront with you?